She called the brain the universe within man, and she dared to reveal secrets no scientist had uttered before her. Natalia Petrovna Bekhtereva, academic, researcher, and the woman who changed our understanding of our most vital organ. But as she grew older, her words resonated with even greater wisdom. After the age of 50, her thoughts gained a special power, as if a lifetime of experience was concentrated into short quotes. Today, we have gathered 9 of Bekhtereva's statements that still stir the mind. These phrases are striking in their simplicity and precision. They strike like lightning, forcing you to reflect on every day you've lived. What matters more, money or memory? Why does science lead to faith? And how can a thought change reality itself? These are not dry lectures, they are direct blows to conventional thinking. You can feel the energy of a person who lived a long life dedicated to research, yet never lost her thirst for truth. Why is simplicity the hardest thing of all? We will ask this question alongside Natalia Petrovna and try to hear the answer in her wisdom. Each of the 9 quotes is a warning, a piece of advice, and a revelation, all at once. They touch upon family, faith, pride, joy, memory, and the very essence of what makes us human. Prepare yourself. What lies ahead is an encounter with the legacy of a great neurophysiologist, an encounter that could change your perception of life. She entered the history of science as the woman who dedicated her entire life to humanity's greatest mystery, the human brain. Natalia Petrovna Bekhtereva was not just a doctor or a researcher. She became an academician of the medical sciences of the Soviet Union, a person whose discoveries overturned conventional ideas about the psyche and the nervous system. Hundreds of scientific papers, decades of experiments, international conferences, and lectures. All of this constituted her life, built on a boundless belief in the power of reason. She studied what others deemed unreachable, the mechanisms of memory, the processes of thought, the mysterious connections between the conscious and subconscious. In her laboratories, Natalia Petrovna spent hours observing the brain's electrical activity, recording the slightest changes, comparing thousands of indicators. To her, the brain was not just an organ, but the very essence of a person, the key to understanding the soul and personality. Under her leadership, new methods of diagnosis and treatment were created, saving thousands of lives. Her colleagues called her a woman of iron will, as she could work without rest, forgetting time and fatigue. Over her working years, Bekhtereva published around 400 fundamental scientific articles and monographs. This number is astonishing. Few researchers can boast such a colossal contribution to world science. But Natalia Petrovna did not limit herself to office work. She lectured to students and doctors, wrote books, and participated in discussions. And her name was known not only in the Soviet Union, but far beyond its borders. She became a symbol of persistence and scientific integrity, a person who spent her whole life moving towards solving the great mystery. What is hidden inside the human brain? Attention. This might change your day. The story of Natalia Bekhtereva is not just a dry list of titles and awards. It is an example of how one person can dedicate themselves to a cause and leave behind a legacy that will work for centuries. Her scientific authority was indisputable. Her conclusions were discussed in the world's leading institutes, and her name is forever inscribed on the golden list of great researchers of the 20th century. She could spend hours explaining electrical impulses and neural connections to students, yet she sincerely believed that something more existed beyond the limits of science. Natalia Petrovna Bekhtereva was a walking paradox, an academician of world renown, and at the same time, a person who paid attention to mysticism and signs of fate. This contrast shocked her colleagues, but made her personality even more captivating. Her scientific biography is filled with rigorous experiments and precise formulas, but Bekhtereva herself admitted more than once that she saw things and dreams and considered them prompts from above. She wrote them down in diaries, analysed them, and was not shy about speaking of them. Moreover, there was an episode in her life involving a meeting with Vanga, the famous Bulgarian psychic to whom millions flocked. Some scientists considered such contact absurd, but for Bekhtereva, it was just another way to peer beyond the veil of human understanding. On one hand, we see an academician of medical sciences, the author of around 400 works, a person raised in the rigid system of Soviet science, where any mention of mysticism was considered almost heresy. On the other hand, a woman who could speak of unknown forces, of thoughts coming from the outside, of the subconscious sometimes revealing the future. Isn't it astounding? How could such a rational researcher allow herself to believe in what official science rejected? It is precisely this paradox that makes her legacy so unique. Natalia Petrovna showed an example that science and a belief in the unknowable do not always contradict each other. On the contrary, they can coexist like two wings of a single truth. From her lips came words that made even skeptics tremble. Thoughts exist separately from the brain. It only captures them. These admissions became a challenge she threw down to the entire scientific world. Prepare to be shocked. Because when a rigorous scientist speaks of mysticism, these are not just the words of a random person. This is the voice of a researcher who spent her entire life behind instruments, approaching the border between the known and the unknown. And it is precisely because of this duality that her quotes are so powerful. They combine cold logic and ardent faith, the experience of an academic and the intuition of a seer. She lived a long and full life, one that had plenty of both scientific victories and personal trials. Natalia Petrovna Bekhtereva left behind not only hundreds of works and discoveries, but also a priceless legacy, words that resonate stronger than any formula. After all, books and articles are read in institutes and libraries, but quotes remain in the memory of millions. Her entire life was dedicated to rigorous science, yet it was the short phrases she uttered, perhaps in passing or recorded in diaries, that became the key to the hearts of ordinary people. They are understandable to everyone, the pensioner and the student, the doctor and the labourer, the mother and the father. These words do not require special training. They don't need to be broken down with formulas and graphs. They work instantly, striking right at the heart. How many people can boast that their thoughts continue to live on after they are gone? How many academicians have left a legacy quoted not only in universities but in everyday life? Natalia Petrovna was among those few whose ideas crossed the threshold of scientific laboratories and resonated in families, on the streets, in ordinary conversations. Her words about family, memory, joy, faith, and the meaning of life became folk wisdom, even though they were born in offices filled with instruments and scientific reports. That is why we are turning to her quotes today. They contain the concentrated essence of decades lived, the experience of a woman who combined the scientific and the human, the strict and the emotional, the rational and the mystical. Every phrase from Bekhtereva is a challenge to our habitual perceptions. It is a reminder of what is most important and a test of our foundations. Do not change the channel. The most interesting part is yet to come. Together, we will look at 9 of her statements that will help us see life in a new way. These phrases are like faceted crystals, with each facet reflecting both her personal journey and our common destiny. Let's take a look at the legacy Natalia Petrovna Bekhtereva left for humanity and try to understand why her wisdom still sends shivers down the spine of those who hear it. She began with a simple but striking admission. We spend our whole lives chasing phantom goals, as if they will bring us happiness. We think, When I get that bonus, buy a spacious apartment, a new car, get that high-ranking position, then I'll finally be satisfied. But what remains in our memory is something else entirely. Bekhtereva wrote that what you remember for life is not the awards or the balance in your bank account, but that moment when your young, handsome father plays the Autumn Dream Waltz on the piano, and you twirl to the music like a leaf caught in the wind. This image holds true wisdom. Work and worries, sleepless nights, and endless tasks. All this is inevitable, but it is not what forms the foundation of human life. The most important memories are born where there is love, attention, and closeness. A child doesn't remember how many zeros were in their parents' bank account, but they will remember for their entire life how they read a story together before bed, how they held their hand, how they laughed and cried beside them. Adults often make a fatal mistake. They try to replace their absence with gifts. It seems that a new toy or an expensive trip will compensate for the lack of connection. But Natalia Petrovna warned sternly. Millions cannot patch the hole left by an absence of closeness. Money is quickly spent. Things break or go out of style. But the memories of parents who are always there, those remain forever. Imagine a child who is waiting not for another gift, but for just one word, hello. Just a few minutes of genuine connection. How many adults later spend their whole lives wishing they could reclaim that simple warmth, but they can't because the time is gone? Here lies the main paradox. For the sake of the future, we sacrifice the present. For the sake of success, we sacrifice the happiness of our family. And yet, it is this present moment that is the only thing that will remain with us in memory. Attention. This will make you rethink everything. Think about what your child will remember in 20 or 30 years. Your overtime at the office, or the evening you taught them to dance to an old waltz. Your reports and bonuses, or the night you sat by their side and told them a story. Natalia Petrovna Bekhtereva left us this lesson. The true value of life is not measured in salary or square meters, but in the moments that connect hearts. She spoke words that made many scientists shudder. My whole life, I have studied the most perfect organ, the human brain, and I have come to the conclusion that the emergence of such a miracle is impossible without a creator. For a person who grew up and was formed in the strict scientific environment of the Soviet Union, this sounded almost like a challenge. In an era when any mention of God was considered a manifestation of weakness or even an ideological violation, Natalia Petrovna allowed herself to publicly admit, science and faith meet where rational explanation ends. The deeper she delved into her research, the more mysterious phenomena of brain function she recorded, the more clearly she understood. What is unfolding before man is not a mechanism, but a mystery. The brain connects billions of cells, each working like a high-precision instrument, and this entire system manages thoughts, feelings, memory, and imagination. How could evolution randomly assemble such a complex and perfect organism? The answers slipped away, and it was in this slipping that faith was born. She emphasized, different scientists arrive at different images of the divine. Some call it God, others the universe, others great energy. But the result is the same. We understand that we do not fully know the world or the reason for its existence. Scientific experiments, it would seem, should have cast aside all mysticism, but they only strengthened the feeling that there is something above us, surpassing all human knowledge. Why are the worst of times the best of opportunities? We will ask this question with her. After all, it is at turning points in history, when old ideas collapse, that the road to the new opens up. So it was with Bekhtereva. Her science did not reject faith. On the contrary, it pushed her toward realizing its necessity. For millions of people, her admission was a revelation. It showed that even the greatest rationalist can see, beyond the microscope and instruments, the presence of the unknown. And this does not make him weaker as a scientist. On the contrary, it elevates him, because only a courageous person can say, "I do not know everything, but I see the hand of the Creator." It was this paradox that made Natalia Petrovna special. She knew how to combine the uncombinable, turning dry science into a spiritual revelation. She asserted what many still fear to admit. Thought exists separately from the brain. The organ merely captures it, like an antenna, and reads it from space. For an academician with a global reputation, such words sounded unexpected, but it is they that reveal her depth. Bekhtereva saw thought not just as a product of neural activity, but as a special energy that enters a person and then returns back to the world. Modern people are used to talking about positive thinking, vision boards, and visualizing success. But decades ago, Natalia Petrovna was already reminding us, thought is material. It has weight, power, and consequences. If goodness and creation are born in the mind, they penetrate the world and begin to work. If, however, destruction, envy, and hatred mature within, that is what the person fills the space around them with. To explain this idea, she used a simple but vivid analogy. We are like players with a tennis racket. We can catch a thought, amplify it, and send it back to those around us. But what will that serve be, for good or for harm? It all depends on what we carry inside. This is where the terrifying and simultaneously inspiring truth is revealed. Every person is responsible not only for their actions, but also for their thoughts. It's frightening, but it works. This is how one might describe her conclusion. After all, if thought is truly energy, then it is capable of changing destinies. How many times have you noticed, as soon as you sink into anxiety or fear, everything around you begins to crumble, and conversely, when faith in the best lives within you, even the most difficult situations gradually change. Science has not yet given a precise answer as to why this happens, but Bekhtereva asserted, the law works, whether we like it or not. Today, her words sound especially relevant. We live in a world overflowing with information, and we often forget that every internal message we send returns to us. We broadcast either joy or pain into the universe, and the more people who understand this simple thing, the cleaner the world around us will become. This was one of Natalia Petrovna's most daring and profound ideas. Thought is not a shadow of the brain, but an independent force capable of changing reality. She said, "If pride does not grow into arrogance and conceit, it becomes a great strength." In these words lies the entire duality of human nature. Pride can lift a person to great heights, help them defend their values, maintain dignity and honor. But the moment it turns into arrogance, it begins to destroy fates, break families, and annihilate relationships. In the modern world, a proud person is often called an egoist or a tyrant. But Natalia Petrovna reminded us, true pride is respect for oneself and one's principles. It is the desire to live fully, to create, to build, and not to turn into a cog in the system. A proud person is capable of discovery, of bold decisions, of breakthroughs that change society. It is such people who move civilization forward because they do not settle for mediocrity. However, pride always walks a fine line. Medicine in a large dose becomes poison, and just the same, pride, when it transitions into arrogance, turns into a destructive force. How many wars, conflicts, and tragedies began because of wounded pride? How many people have lost friends and family just because they couldn't stop in time and admit a mistake? Why did the worst advice turn out to be the best? We ask with her. After all, sometimes it is life itself, hurling criticism and defeat at us, that makes us understand. To be proud does not mean to be haughty. To be proud means to respect yourself while retaining the capacity for love and cooperation. Bekhtereva saw pride as an internal motor that can lead a person to happiness and success. But she warned, let that motor overheat, and it will burn out, leaving only ashes behind. Therefore, the main task for everyone is to learn to keep this power in balance. Her words resonate with the wisdom of a doctor and scientist who observed hundreds of lives and understood everything given to us by nature can be both a blessing and a curse. It all depends on how we wield it. She asserted, it is characteristic for man to seek joy. It is an unnamed biological survival instinct. In these words lies a stunning simplicity and, simultaneously, depth. Natalia Petrovna saw the pursuit of happiness not as a whim or caprice, but as a fundamental program embedded in us by nature itself. A person can do without many things, but without a feeling of joy, they quickly lose their strength and their reason for existence. We are used to thinking that joy is always connected to material things. A new car, a bigger apartment, the latest model phone. We chase after these things as if they are a lifeline, but every time we achieve what we desired, we realize the joy has slipped away. The satisfaction lasts only a few minutes, and then a new goal appears on the horizon, more expensive, brighter, bigger. This is how modern man falls into the trap of an endless race with no winners. It's like running in a closed circle. Today, we are happy about a new purchase. Tomorrow, we get used to it. And the day after tomorrow, we are already looking for something else. And each time, we hope, this time, surely, it will get easier and happier. But, as Bekhtereva said, true joy is not sold in stores. It lives in the little things, in the quiet of the morning, in a child's smile, in a sincere conversation, in the feeling that a loved one is near. Stop everything and focus, we can almost hear her warning between the lines. Joy cannot be stockpiled. It cannot be bought with a bonus or lottery winnings. It comes when a person is capable of being grateful for what they already have. And this is precisely what makes it such a powerful survival tool. After all, if people did not know how to find joy in simple things, they would have broken long ago under the weight of problems and worries. Her words are especially relevant today, when the world offers an endless stream of things and services promising happiness. But behind every new, more expensive, bigger lies emptiness. And only the one who has learned to find joy in the present moment is truly strong. Bekhtereva left us this lesson. Joy is not a luxury, but a vital instinct, without which a person ceases to be human. She spoke firmly and without hesitation. One must not give up on a patient just because the textbook does not yet include everything that specialists can do today. This thought shatters common stereotypes. How many times have we heard, it's impossible, there's no chance, this diagnosis can't be treated? But Natalia Petrovna reminded us, every day medicine opens new horizons, and what was considered hopeless yesterday is already treatable today. She knew of hundreds of cases where patients who were given weeks lived for years, where people who had been written off got back on their feet, defying all prognoses. And all this because they did not give up. The power of faith, the power of will, the desire to fight. These are things that sometimes work more powerfully than medicine. The scientist in her understood that the human brain is capable of launching recovery processes that medicine is only beginning to guess at. This idea extends far beyond medicine. How many lives have been changed just because a person refused to believe the word impossible? Musicians without hearing became legends. Athletes with no physical advantages won gold. Children from poor families rose to the peaks of science. Each time it looked like a miracle, but it was actually the result of persistence and an internal decision not to surrender. Act while it is not yet too late. Her quote seems to appeal to each of us. If you were told the road is closed, it doesn't mean there is no way out. It only means that others do not see the path that you can take. Natalia Petrovna called for destroying stereotypes and remembering. The old laws of the universe are regularly refuted by new discoveries. So why shouldn't we refute others' prognoses about our own capabilities? Her words sound like a challenge to all who are ready to throw in the towel. There is no empty consolation or banal phrasing in them. This is the voice of a scientist who spent decades observing how people break prognoses and emerge victorious. It is an inspiring example that the boundaries of human potential are wider than they seem. Bekhtereva left us an important covenant. Never accept the label hopeless. As long as a person is alive and fighting, they always have a chance. She left a simple but stunningly powerful thought. If all is well in the family, then it is possible, probably, to come home and forget about work. These words sound like a breath of fresh air for everyone who has ever felt exhausted by endless responsibilities. Home should not be an extension of the office, but an island of peace, a place where you can take off the mask and be yourself. Natalia Petrovna reminded us, it is alarming when a person feels more comfortable at work than with their loved ones. Work can bring success, money, and recognition, but it can never replace the warmth of home. Where love and respect reign, the main difficulty boils down to which bedtime story to read to a child or which movie to choose for a family night. And it is in these small things that true happiness is born, happiness that cannot be bought and cannot be replaced. Family, in her conviction, is the main source of strength. If there is support at home, then no difficulties on the outside can break you. But if the home is cold and alienated, then even the loudest victories at work seem empty. What good are career achievements if you don't want to return home in the evening, if the walls of your home don't warm you, but oppress you? Do not put this off until tomorrow, Bekhtereva seemed to warn. When choosing a life partner, you must think not about external attributes, but about whether you can create an atmosphere of warmth and trust together. After all, in the end, what matters most is that you are wanted at home, not just tolerated, that minor disagreements do not escalate into quarrels, but are resolved through conversation and compromise, that love does not fade under the burden of daily life, but instead becomes a shield against all external storms. Her words sound especially relevant today, when many sacrifice family for a career and endless projects. But Natalia Petrovna left a reminder. Home is a sacred place that forms our inner balance, and only there can a person truly rest their soul. If all is well in the family, if respect and love reign there, then you can forget about the hard day, take a deep breath, and believe in life again. She said that actions are conditioned by memory is proven above all by life itself. And in this simple phrase, an entire philosophy is hidden. A person is born like an empty vessel, which is gradually filled with memories. Every event, every person, every encounter leaves a mark on us. From these marks, our character is formed, our inner core takes shape. Natalia Petrovna emphasized, deprive a person of memories, and they will cease to be themselves. We remember how we were taught to read, how we first fell off a bicycle, how we laughed at a silly joke in school. These small fragments form the mosaic of personality. If you remove them, not only the past disappears, but also the future. Because it is memory that determines what decisions we make and which path we take. She gave examples from life. Someone who has experienced pain or fear will be cautious. They will look for detours. They will hesitate before a new step. Someone who was surrounded by care and support in childhood will later strive to give love and attention to their own children. We give others what we lacked, or, conversely, we try not to repeat the mistakes of others. And all of this is the result of memory, that internal library that stores every page of our lived experience. This changed my relationship with life. This is how one could describe the effect of her words, as they force us to look at the familiar differently. We often think that we act spontaneously, but in reality, every step is based on past experience. Even the simple decision to trust someone or to be wary is always linked to what we have already lived through. Bekhtereva warned, this is precisely why it is important to work with one's past. If memories are full of pain, they will continue to control us. But if we learn to accept and process our experiences, they become not chains, but steps towards something new. A person, in her words, always carries a baggage of memory, and this baggage determines their actions. And in this lies a surprising truth. The past does not go away. It lives in our everyday. She confessed, I always wanted to look beyond the edge, beyond the limit, to be where no one has been before. I wanted to understand what makes a person human. This quote became her personal testament, the quintessence of her entire life. After decades of research, hundreds of experiments, and thousands of observations, Natalia Petrovna never found a definitive answer. And perhaps therein lies the greatness of the question. It has no simple formula. What makes us human? Is it reason, which allows us to build cities and create technology? Is it memory, which stores our victories and mistakes? Or, perhaps, is it love, without which any discovery loses its meaning? Bekhtereva threw down a challenge to everyone. Think about what, for you, defines the essence of a person. This is not an academic question, but a question for the soul. In her words, one could hear a thirst for knowledge that neither years, nor titles, nor awards could quench. She lived a long life and still remained a researcher, seeking truth. Her riddle is addressed not to scientists and philosophers, but to all of us, because each of us holds our own answer to this eternal question, and every answer is priceless. Take a step toward change, her words seem to sound between the lines. After all, reflecting on what makes a person human is capable of changing life itself. When we think about this, we begin to relate differently to our actions, to our loved ones, to ourselves. We seek not only comfort and profit, but also meaning. That is why this quote is not a finale, but an invitation to reflection, to conversation, to an exchange of thoughts. Natalia Petrovna is, as if, passing the baton. I searched for the answer my whole life, and now it is your turn. Share in the comments, what, in your opinion, makes a person human? What qualities, actions, or thoughts define our true I? These words are like a mirror. Looking into them, we see not only the wisdom of a great scientist, but also ourselves. And perhaps this is the solution. A person becomes human when they begin to search for the answer to this question. And so now, having journeyed together through the 9 wise quotes of Natalia Petrovna Bekhtereva, it is time to stop and think. Her words do not sound like dry aphorisms, but like laws of life, tested by time. Every thought from the academician is a reminder to us, living today. Cherish your loved ones. Do not chase after emptiness. Look for joy in the simple things. Do not give up in the face of difficulties, and remember that memory and faith are what make us human. These lessons do not grow old, because they touch the very heart of human life. But wisdom only works when we pass it on. That is why it is important that as many people as possible learn about Bekhtereva's legacy. Do not keep this knowledge to yourself. Share it. Tell your friends and family. Send this video to those who are currently searching for answers to difficult questions. Perhaps these quotes will help someone make an important decision or find the strength to keep fighting. Hit the like button If Natalia Petrovna's words resonated in your heart, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. Here, we gather wisdom that has been tested by life and time. Here, you will always find answers to questions you cannot ask a textbook or a reference guide. Do not miss this opportunity. I will say in words that sound like both a warning and a promise. Because ahead of us lie many more quotes and ideas that can change your habitual perception of life. Turn on notifications to be the first to hear new material. And now, for the most important part. Write in the comments, which of the 9 Bekhtereva quotes affected you the most? What resonated in your soul? What piece of advice are you ready to take into your own life, starting today? Your thoughts are important because it is they that create a living community of like-minded people, for whom the wisdom of the past becomes the road to the future. This is not the end, but only the beginning of our conversation. Natalia Petrovna left us a legacy that cannot be exhausted, and we will continue to discover it together. Subscribe, share, stay with us, and you will see how knowledge and wisdom can change life step by step. Friends, you have been on the Wisdom of Natalia Bekhtereva channel. If these words touched you, if you found resonance and strength in them for yourself, please support us. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell so you'll be the first to know about new videos. Ahead, much more wisdom awaits you. Wisdom that helps us live and understand what truly matters.